to our show, Real Shame, where we watch movies from our list of shame or movie blind spots. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
And we're just coming out of our month of October where we were watching a bunch of horror movies. So hopefully you enjoyed those as much as we have had all that stuff. And this week we're in for a couple of movie and a remake. But before we talk about those, we always like to talk about what we've been watching on these Monday episodes. So Andy, I have a feeling of what genre of movies you've been watching. What have you been watching lately?
Sports.
Oh, never mind.
This is the time of year where all the sports besides hockey are in full swing. So I've been watching playoff baseball, NBA season is starting, and football. But I did manage to squeeze in a few movies. We're still filming this, even though we're done with our Halloween movies. We're actually filming this in October. So
That's
yeah,
right.
I'm still watching some horror films. I'll just say that I think when we did, I know when we did Psycho 2, I mentioned Anthony Perkins' son, Osgood Perkins, or Oz Perkins, is also a director of horror films. And when we filmed that episode, I hadn't seen any of his films, but now I've seen at least two of them. I'm not sure exactly how many he has. I know he has at least three, but I've seen two of them. One is The Blackcoat's Daughter, and one is the latest Gretel and Hansel that came out in, I believe, 2020. I really enjoyed The Blackcoat's Daughter. It gets a lot of criticism. I think his movies overall get a lot of criticism because they are boring.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go into The Blackcoat's Daughter expecting maybe a more traditional kind of horror film where with jump scares and things like that, then yes, you will be bored. But I think that he has a very strong command. I didn't look to see who does the cinematography for his films or if it's the same person on all his films, but I know that the two films that I watched I thought had really good cinematography, really good visual style, good editing, good soundtracks, nice ambiance overall.
Yeah.
But I like The Blackcoat's Daughter a lot. Gretel and Hansel was okay. It's visually, I thought it was pretty cool, but I thought I had more problems than certainly The Blackcoat's Daughter did. But I like that. I also liked the new Candyman. I watched that not too long ago. I thought that was good. That also
need to watch that one.
Gets some criticism for being, I don't know, too woke or something like that. But I thought it was good. Your mileage may vary. And I also, another horror film that I watched that I liked was called Relic, which is maybe a little Babadook-like in the sense that it's horror that deals with something specific that occurs with people, but I enjoyed that one overall. But that is what I have been watching. I've watched some other crap horror films that I won't even mention.
You just want to highlight them.
Those are the highlights from the last month that we did not do on the show that I watched on my own. So what have you been watching?
So as like you said, we're filming this. We're towards the end of October. And just this weekend, the second season of Lock and Key dropped. I think this time last year, I was talking about Lock and Key and how much I enjoyed it. I felt like it was very teeny drama, but there was a lot there to kind of sink your teeth into and stuff. And I can't believe it's been a year. It feels like it's been longer since the last season. But season 2 has dropped. I've seen some of the criticisms that it's darker, and maybe it is. But this season is really good. I think they de-emphasize a lot of the kiddie stuff. There's a strong kind of cohesive story that we're telling for the whole season, all that kind of stuff. Andy's laptop goes to sleep. There we go. Technical difficulties. I could probably ad-lib while we're doing this. Yeah. Okay, what I was saying. So I really enjoyed the second season a lot. I think it's hitting its stride. I think it's doing what it does very well. And I'm very, very happy with this this new season. I wish we can I want more. I want more. I don't know how to get more of it faster, but that's what I want. I want more of it more faster and all that kind of stuff. The others, in addition to what, there's some other movies I've been watching, but I wanted to highlight, I did watch the I Know What You Did Last Summer trilogy. Yes, there is a trilogy to those movies. Surprise, surprise. The first one, better than I remember. It's not a great movie, but it's still pretty good. I think it's Kevin Williamson wrote it. This is when he was hot on, off of Scream. He did I Know What You Did Last Summer. He did, he did the Dawson's Creek and all that kind of stuff. So the first one is as good or maybe a little bit better than I remember. The sequel is okay. You know, they follow the gang to an island resort that the killer set up and all that kind of stuff. And you know, for what kind of movie it is, that was okay. The third movie has a really hard task ahead of itself because for the third movie they have to introduce this killer to a whole group of teenagers that don't have a connection to him like they did in the first two movies, right? Because we don't have Jennifer Love Hewitt back, we don't have Freddie Prinze Jr. back, we don't have anybody that's related or know these characters back in the third movie. So it's like, how do you bring this guy back? How do you bring this killer to fruition that doesn't know these people? And I'm gonna spoil it for you right here. It's because he's a ghost zombie or something like that, and it's a terrible movie. It is edited terribly. It is the strangest edited movie I have ever seen because it has these like music video intercuts where it's like it just like cuts like things like it's just so weird. It's such a weird movie. So it was not good. It felt like a really bad fever dream, but that's what I've been watching. So second season Lock and Key, highly recommend it. More people need to watch it so I can get more Lock and Key. And then I Know What You Did Last Summer. There's a third one. It's not that good.
I'll always know what you did. Are you gonna watch was it on Amazon, the TV?
I do want to watch the
I Know
TV
What You
show
Did
now a
Last
little
Summer
bit.
TV
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. I actually want to watch the Scream TV show and the I Know What You Did Last Summer TV show.
I started watching Scream, but I never even finished the first season. It has,
Nothing.
at least so far, it has nothing to do with the
Yeah.
movies, really. I didn't think it was terrible. I just got on to something else. I don't know about I Know What You Did Last Summer on TV. I started watching The Picnic at Hanging Rock, and I thought that was horrible. I couldn't make it
Yeah.
past one episode. So we'll see.
All right. Well, maybe I'll report back in a couple weeks if I get a chance to watch it. We got 5 seconds to an episode, and I was like, all right, I got to be more awake to watch it.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what we've been watching. So let's get into our feature review. And if you've seen the podcast title, the movie, the YouTube video title, you know what it's going to be, and that's going to be
Just in time for Christmas 1984, it's Dune.
Dune.
Duke Leto Atreides of Caladan, his concubine, the Lady Jessica, and his young son Paul have been commissioned to take over a spice mining operation on another planet. The planet is a harsh desert planet formerly ruled by the cruel Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, known as Arrakis, but also known as Dune.
Duncan!
Paul, I was just on my way to say goodbye to you. I have to go on ahead alone. I won't be seeing you for a while.
I wish you were coming with us. Why?
Something for your father. He wants to talk to you. I'll see you on Arrakis. May the hand of God be with you.
May the hand of God be with us all, Duncan.
So Dune was it's taken from a book. It was written by Frank Herbert, published in 1965. Frank actually wrote 6 novels in the Dune series before he passed away. I think he passed away in 1986. So he was alive to see the 1984 version of Dune. I don't know if it sped him towards an early grave, but it might have. But his son, Brian Herbert, has, in conjunction with a guy named Kevin J. Anderson, written a lot more Dune books, kind of prequels and other books of Dune. I've read the first Dune book, so Dune, and then the second book and the third book, but not all 6 of Frank Herbert's books. So I'm halfway there in his original sextet of novels. But they have been wanting to make a movie version of Dune basically since the novel was published. It's a very well received critically and obviously a bestseller, worldwide bestseller, made a lot of money. And so in the 1970s, it was kind of talked about by a lot of different people, perhaps most famously by a filmmaker by the name of Alejandro Jodorowsky. And there is, in fact, a documentary which came out in 2013 called Jodorowsky's Dune, which is a very fascinating account of kind of how they tried to make it and who they tried to get involved with it. Jodorowsky, if you've seen any Jodorowsky films like The Holy Mountain or El Topo or Santa Sangre, they are out there. They're very psychedelic and strange. I'm a fan. I think he is a pretty visionary director, but his movies are definitely different. They come out of left field a little bit, but because Jodorowsky is a sort of I don't want to say a weird guy, but he definitely has some interesting kind of tastes. He wanted the music for Dune to be done. Well, he approached Pink Floyd to do it. He had a discussion
that's a great idea
with Pink Floyd. He also had a discussion with a group called Magma, which I don't even know Magma. I'm not familiar with them. He originally approached Douglas.
Not Toto.
Not Toto. Not Toto. He originally approached Douglas Trumbull to do the special effects. Douglas Trumbull had worked on 2001: A Space Odyssey, but he felt Douglas Trumbull was too kind of snooty, and so he's like, I don't even want to work with this guy. So he talks about in the documentary, he went to the movie theater and he saw a movie which we've done on the show called Dark Star, and he was impressed with the special effects done by Dan O'Bannon.
Yep.
And who, of course, would go on to work on Alien. And so he enlisted Dan O'Bannon to do the special effects. He also enlisted H.R. Geiger, who also would obviously work on Alien.
Sounds like he's ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time. He enlisted H.R. Geiger to be part of the film. He wanted Salvador Dali to be the emperor in the movie. And Orson Welles, he wanted to play the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, because, Orson Welles is a pretty heavy fella.
He was later on.
At that time. But the project fell through. But as you said, H.R. Geiger and Dan O'Bannon went on to work on Alien. Mobius is another guy that did a lot of the storyboarding for the movie. He went on to do other things involved in science fiction. So a lot of the stuff that Jodorowsky kind of envisioned made its way, at least in one form or another, into some of these other movies. But David Lynch was finally hired by Dino De Laurentiis to make a version of Frank Herbert's novel, epic novel at that. It's a very long novel with a lot of stories, so it is difficult to bring it to the screen. I'm not sure exactly what it was about David Lynch that attracted the De Laurentiis to the project, but anyway, he made
Apparently, did you read this, that David Lynch turned down working on
Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, for this movie.
To do this movie, yeah.
So apparently George Lucas thought they both must have saw something in his filmography.
Well, he'd done Eraserhead and he'd done The Elephant Man, but I don't think he had done anything else besides those two. I don't know. I know, Eraserhead's pretty weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that would make you say, hey, this guy needs to do the third Star Wars movie. It's interesting. Anyway, it's directed by David Lynch, but there is a longer version of the film. So the theatrical version of the film runs a little over 2 hours, but for like a television version, they put together kind of deleted scenes and outtakes and bits and pieces and made, I think it's a little over 3 hour long version that they aired on television. But David Lynch said, I want nothing to do with that movie. That's not my vision. Actually, the 2 hour version he complains about was not really his vision either. It was cut and he had to make changes to it that he didn't like. But the 3 hour long other version is credited to Alan Smithy, which is the director's name that they put on movies that the original director doesn't want anything to do with.
Yeah.
So yeah, the longer version is directed by Alan Smithy, and I think the longer version is not on Blu-ray right now. But I believe I heard that they are going to put it out next year in 2022. I think it's like a special feature, maybe on some other version of Dune. I'm not sure. But
maybe on the new version.
David Lynch only has one version of this film that he actually considers to be directed by him. The screenplay was written by David Lynch, and again, adapted from the novel by Frank Herbert. It stars a big cast. Francesca Annis is the Lady Jessica. She had done Krull just a couple of years before, a year before, 1983, I think, is when Krull came out. Jürgen Prochnow plays Duke Leto Atreides. Kyle MacLachlan, in I believe his film debut, plays Paul Atreides. Obviously, Kyle MacLachlan would go on to work with David Lynch in Blue Velvet a couple of years later, and then in Twin Peaks as well. Freddie Jones, eyebrows and everything. He has some Morgan Freeman Dreamcatcher eyebrows. Freddie Jones plays the Mentat Thufir Hawat, and Freddie Jones is the father of actor Toby Jones.
Oh.
You know who that is. Jose Ferrer, who's the father of actor Miguel Ferrer, plays Padisha Emperor Shaddam IV. Patrick Stewart, yes, Patrick Stewart from Star Trek The Next Generation. Obviously, Picard. He plays Gurney Halleck in this film, plays the Balisette. Dean Stockwell plays Dr. Yui. Linda Hunt plays the Shadout Mapes, the housekeeper. Richard Jordan, who I love, plays Duncan Idaho. He's not in the film nearly long enough for my taste before he gets offed. Everett McGill, who also has worked with David Lynch further down the road, plays Stilgar, the leader of the Fremen. Virginia Madsen has a very small role, although she is kind of the narrator, at least at the beginning of the film. She plays the Emperor's daughter, Princess Irulan. Kenneth McMillan overacts as Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. Paul Smith, who played Bluto in Popeye a few years prior to this, plays the Beast Raban. Sting of the Police. Yes, Sting, the basis for the Police, and obviously the lead singer of the Police, plays Fade Rotha. Sting got his acting start in the movie Quadrophenia, the Who film, but he acted in some other things prior to this as well, besides Quadrophenia. Max von Sydow plays the Imperial ecologist, Dr. Liet Kynes. Sean Young plays, they call her Chani in this movie. I think in the miniseries they call her Cheney. In the new movie, I think they call her Chani as well. But in this one, it's Chani. Sean Young, she was in Blade Runner a couple of years before this. Yep. Alicia Witt has a very, very small role as Paul's sister Alia, who is born later on in the film. Brad Dourif, who we saw in The Exorcist 3 most recently, plays Peter DeVries, or Peiter. I've heard it said both ways. And finally, Jack Nance, who also worked a lot with David Lynch, has a very small role as I didn't even write his character's name now because he's barely in the film. And David Lynch himself has a cameo. He is one of the guys on the spice miner that gets eaten by the sandworm, but they get rescued before it does. Okay, so now that I've gone through all that huge introduction of all of the cast and everything else, this is a movie
introduction as Dune is himself.
Exactly right. You could have read the book in the time it took me to say all that. I've seen this movie once before, and I have mentioned on the show before that I don't think this movie is very good. But before I get to what I thought about it this time around, what about you? I know you haven't read Dune.
Yeah. Oh, so when you watched Dune for the first time, was it before or after you read the book?
It was before I read the book.
Okay, fair enough.
So I saw this movie having no knowledge of what went on in it. Yeah.
So you're gonna ask me what I thought of it.
What did you think of it?
I've never read the Dune books. I've heard good things about the Dune books. I'm worried that the Dune books are more about politics, like outer space politics, and I don't know how interesting that would be for me to read, but maybe it is. I mean, I don't know. Game of Thrones is about politics, and people seem to enjoy those books too. But I like.
I'd rather read about Dune politics than read about politics going on in our world.
Westworld. Yeah, true. So I kind of kept an open mind for this. I've heard rumblings about this movie not being very good, but I was kind of expecting like maybe on the whole the movie's not good, but maybe there's a kind of some nuggets and some tidbits that are really interesting that you kind of latch onto, and maybe this was a movie that has like a big cult following, and that's the reason why. But I didn't find those in this watching of the movie. The movie is very, very dense.
Yes.
The introduction is very dense. I read in the trivia that they handed out a piece of paper to everyone watching the movie that explains certain terms that they needed.
You got a glossary,
You got a glossary of terms, which was, that's what you need. That's David Lynch's vision right there, is that, you get basically like a program book like you do when you go to the theater and you have to digest a bunch of information before they lower the lights and you're kind of watching it. I really just did not like this movie. It just, again, there was nothing in it that I could find really interesting or captivating that I can kind of hold on to and like really like. It's awesome seeing Patrick Stewart in it. I also read that he apparently wasn't aware of the police or who Sting was.
Oh, is that right?
So yeah, he thought that basically Sting.
Who are you?
Yeah, it was basically like played a policeman in, I guess, in a YMCA kind of band or something like that.
Why is that man wearing a mankini?
Yeah, exactly. It's just such a strange movie. It doesn't give you a whole lot to kind of go off of a little bit. I think honestly the movie looks really, really cheap. Like I don't know what the budget is, but it just feels like all the stuff with the Harkonnens like in a green painted room, right? Where it looked like they just took some flats, put them on the wall, painted them green and all that kind of stuff. It didn't seem like there was much, visual interest in the stuff. And then we had like the tardigrade looking thing that could tell the future and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm kind of rambling. I guess ultimately it's not for me, this movie. There's nothing in it. I don't know what I'm supposed to like. I'm not bringing anything from the books in it that I'm seeing. So there's no prior knowledge of what's going on or the world or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of thrusted into this world, and I have no clue, why Paul Atreides wants to do what he is, why he is the one, all that kind of stuff. And, I'm kind of picking up as I go along, but it's just, for me, just, there wasn't anything rewarding or anything interesting for me from this watching. And I'm sure people are going to be outside the front door with pitchforks, because I'm sure it's as beloved as...
I don't know.
I just feel like people that love the book are going to like this movie no matter what, but maybe I'm incorrect.
I think people that love this book, because I love this book, I think people that love this book don't like this movie at all, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, I think that's a great introduction.
I'm one of them.
Let's go into you.
Yeah, so the first time I saw this movie, I mean, because I'm old enough to remember when this movie came out, but I was a kid at the time, and I'd never heard of Dune when it was, it was like, oh, it's coming out for Christmas time. I was like, so I didn't care about. I cared more about Return of the Jedi, Star Wars kind of things, than I did about Dune. So I didn't see this when I was young. I first saw it probably around 2003, something like that, is the first time that I saw this movie. And I didn't think it was very good then. I had always heard that it was very difficult to understand, especially if you've never read the books. And yeah, I found it to be a little bit odd, and I felt like I kind of knew what was going on. They do an okay job of kind of the exposition. Virginia Madsen handles that at the beginning,
and also a lot of voiceovers.
Yeah,
a lot of internal
monologues. Yeah,
whispered to. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking right now.
Right, I might lose my son tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Might die.
But I don't know. Sorry.
But I feel like they do an okay job of kind of communicating to somebody who has not read the book. So anyway, I didn't think the movie was very good, and I just kind of forgot about it. Well, about 12 or 13 years ago, I decided, doggone it, I'm going to read some science fiction novels, because I never really read very much science fiction when I was younger or otherwise. So I kind of made a little list of of books that I wanted to read. Dune was on that list. Novels like William Gibson's Neuromancer, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I read Gateway by Frederick Pohl. I read Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I read some Ursula K. Le Guin. But I loved Dune. I thought Dune was a really, really excellent book. So when I was done reading the book, not only did I read the next two books in the series, but I went back and revisited Dune the movie to see if I liked it any better. I did not. In fact, I think I liked it worse, because now I was going into it having read the book and seeing how they translated this book that I really, really enjoyed to the screen. And I just don't think David Lynch was the right director for this at all. Now, I'm not a David Lynch fan. I've said that many times before, and maybe that will bring people with pitchforks, hopefully outside your door and not outside mine. But I'm just not a big David Lynch fan. I most of his movies I don't really care for, and I've seen just about everything that he's done. There's a few things that he's done that I like, but for the most part, I don't get him. I'm just not into his movies.
But I don't feel like he brings any of his weird quirkiness to this movie either.
I think he does. I mean, I feel like...
Or at least narratively.
I feel like some of the... Maybe not narratively, but I feel like some of the look of it and some of the costumes and things that they wear. The guy that comes in with the microphone and he's like talking in a foreign language and it translates. That to me was very Lynchian.
And then the plugs over the heart.
And those guys look like they were wearing trash bag suits. It was just very... strange to me. I feel like he brought in some weirdness. I don't know whose choice it was to do the eyebrow, and I didn't shut my phone off. I didn't know whose choice it was to do the eyebrows on Freddie Jones, but I laugh at those the whole time.
Yeah, that all looks
because just like for the same reason I laugh at Morgan Freeman when I watch Dreamcatcher.
All the ladies, the women of what are they called?
The Bene Gesserit.
The Bene Gesserits are all like super bald chicks.
Yeah, he saw Star Trek the motion picture. He saw the
versus
Kambata.
So this time around,
I can't stand this movie. I don't think this movie is good. I feel like, again, I feel like David Lynch is just the wrong person to adapt this. They just don't do a good job bringing it to the screen. I don't necessarily have a problem with Kyle MacLachlan. I do like Francesca Annis as the Lady Jessica. A lot of these people, I feel like you see them briefly and then they're just not in the movie anymore. As I already mentioned, I feel like Kenneth McMillan overacts as the Baron. I feel like Sting kind of overacts as Fade Rotha.
Sting is just
Not
weird.
sure he's
it's
the
just
best
unusual in
choice.
this movie.
Yeah, he's the best choice. Alicia Witt, when her character finally comes in as Alia,
she's all bald, blue-eyed.
well, and they've got a somebody dubbed her voice. They don't have Alicia Witt actually talking, and she sounds like this. My brother is the Kwisatz Haderach. You know, I'm just like, this just sounds ridiculous to me. I feel like the battle scenes are poorly edited. You can't tell what's going on half the time.
Stupid sound gun is idiotic because it has like this contraption that's like sticking out here. It just doesn't look. It's almost like retro sci-fi with like the mechanisms that they use, like the big microphone thing. You don't think of like that being like very futuristic. Mm-hmm. It's like very old style. It's like it's so weird, his choices for things like that, where he's like grabs something that's ancient technology even by 84's time, and uses that for this sci-fi movie. It's so strange.
Yeah, I just feel like the whole movie is really clunky. A lot of it is poorly edited. There's some overacting, there's some poor acting, there's some good acting as well, but it's just David Lynch wasn't the right guy to bring this to the screen. And you know, the typical story, and it's no different with this movie. David Lynch is like, oh well, my original cut was 3 or 4 hours long, and it would have been a lot better, but the studio made me cut it down to 2 hours, and we had to bring in Virginia Madsen to do this opening narration because the TV version doesn't have the Virginia Madsen intro to it. It has like production stills and all this other stuff, and it has some other guy, I think, narrating. So it goes a completely different route in getting the exposition out to the audience.
Well, I'll say I don't buy those arguments. I hate those arguments because you kind of know going into the movie, like you have your script, right?
Yeah.
And you can basically estimate how long the movie's going to be, and you kind of know where audiences are with this kind of stuff. So just make a good story in that amount of time. I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't buy that director's cut stuff.
So one guy that was attached at one point to direct Dune back in the 1970s was Ridley Scott, who went on to do Alien. I think Ridley Scott would have been a much better choice to do a movie like Dune. Obviously, we saw what he could do with Alien, and it's a terrific film. So I feel like Dune would have been a lot better had they actually kept Ridley Scott and he did this film. But yeah, as it stands, I feel like this is just a failure.
Yeah, I mean, I think
there's no other way to put it.
Yeah,
so it's maybe a fascinating failure, but it's a failure nonetheless.
I was talking to Kirby. I think this is one of the worst movies we watched.
Really?
She was like, even worse than Find Me Guilty, and I'm like, at least I could I could like you, I could understand what was going on in this movie. I could follow it, and I kind of know overall kind of what happened. But it's just like this movie's so long, so dense, and just so uninteresting that I think I even like Find Me Guilty a little bit better.
I think I would watch this over Find Me Guilty. I really hated that. But that doesn't mean this movie's good, because it's not. This movie is gone. I didn't really like it the first time I saw it, and it's only gone downhill from there, especially now that I've read the book, because the book really is good. And those of you watching, if you've read the book, you probably liked it, and you probably don't necessarily like this movie. I think some people, that really love the book really hate this film because they're like, they did a terrible job. Other people are like, well, I love Dune so much. I love any time they bring it to the screen. So I'm cool with this. And, that's your thing, whatever. But I personally do not like this film.
So you said they edited this one for TV. And I know there's some like other Dunes that have been released.
So you can watch the longer version. I know it's on DVD, but I just don't think that it's been released on Blu-ray yet. But I do think, and I could be wrong, there may be a version on Blu-ray somewhere floating out there, but I'm not aware of one. But I think that it is coming out next year. But in 2000, this was made for the Sci-Fi Channel as a mini-series. So it's, without commercials, it's about 4.5 hours long, something like that. It stars William Hurt as Duke Leto Atreides. I unfortunately didn't write the guy's name down that stars as Paul Atreides.
I figure like the Paul Atreides is like the main character, not his dad, Duke Leto.
Yeah, he is. I just don't remember the guy's name. Yeah. I don't know if I've seen him in anything besides the Dune stuff. But I watched the miniseries after I watched this film, and I would say the miniseries is better just because it's more comprehensive. They got more time to fill in more details and stuff like that. It's also not amazing, and the acting range is all over the place. The guy that plays the Beast Raban overacts. He's at like a 14 the whole time.
Maybe that's just what the character, what they call for that character.
I think so, but whatever actor takes that role, they go
wants
nuts
to go
with it.
tend with it.
Really chew the scenery. I actually think Paul Smith that plays it in the 1984 version isn't too bad. He kind of just smirks the whole time. But the miniseries is okay, and it was pretty highly rated when it came out. I think at the time it was the most watched miniseries that the Sci-Fi Channel ever did. But if you watch it now, and it is available on Blu-ray, not in region A, but there's I think an Australian Blu-ray that's all regions, so you don't need a region-free player to play it. So you can get that. The version that I have is the Umbrella Entertainment, the Australian one, and some of the subtitles are only in French. So if you can't read French or you don't have Google Translate handy, you might not know what they're saying. But there's very, very few of those.
Parlez-vous français?
Don't worry. Yeah, you need to learn French. No, you don't need to learn French. You can just use Google Translate if you don't know what they're saying. And then a couple of years after that, or maybe 3 years after that, Sci-Fi Channel also did a Children of Dune miniseries, which takes the second book, which is Dune Messiah, and the third book, which is Children of Dune, and puts those both as the miniseries. So the first, I don't know, hour or so is Dune Messiah, and then the rest of the miniseries is Children of Dune. So it's called Children of Dune, and it has James McAvoy in it as...
Remember him from next week.
Exactly. We'll be seeing him later. But he plays Paul's son, Leto II, in the miniseries. But I thought the Dune miniseries for the Sci-Fi Channel was okay. I mean, I didn't mind watching it. It was, again, better than the 1984 film. I actually think I like the Children of Dune miniseries even better, because that's the only film version. I mean, it was made for TV, but it's the only film version I know of for those books. So I thought it was kind of cool because I hadn't seen that brought to the screen before. But again, it's Sci-Fi Channel, so you get some iffy special effects. Even for their time, you get some iffy special effects that probably were laughable then and are really kind of laughable now. But maybe it's part of its charm. But the 1984 Dune is 48% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a 65% audience score. It got 2 thumbs down from Siskel and Ebert. They did not care for this, and Leonard Maltin didn't care for it either. He gave it 1.5 stars.
Almost a bomb.
Almost a bomb.
All right. So we've talked about Dune 1984, and I'm sure there's a reason why we're doing that now. So why don't we talk about what we're going to follow this movie review up with?
Well, it just came out in theaters, but also if you happen to have HBO Max, you can watch it from the comfort of your own couch.
Your friend's couch.
Or your friend's couch. It's the 2021 version of Dune we'll be talking about next time.
All right, guys. Well, stay tuned for that in a couple days when we look at Denis Villeneuve's version of Dune. So we haven't done the outro in a while, so I'm trying to remember what it is. If you like this show, or if you don't, please subscribe. If you're listening to us on audio or on YouTube, share the episode. We really do appreciate that. And stay tuned in a couple days when we watch Dune 2001 and let you know what we think about it. We'll see you soon, guys. Bye.